Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about Macron's threats that he will destroy France before he'll let Putin win, as though he can somehow stop things from happening that are bound to happen. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. And before we get started, I'm going to go. Everybody knows I love to read. I got some new books. Let me show you my new books that I got to get on top of. One of them is called Gag Ordered No More, the 800-pound gorilla in the U.S. government. Brian Check, who's a good friend of mine, he is interesting about his history of being saying things that the government didn't like and getting censored. Here's another one. You got to see this one. Jacques Baud, The Russian Art of War, How the West Led Ukraine to Defeat. That's a must. And last but not least, here's a good one. Conjuring Hitler, How Britain and America Made the Third Reich. Guido Giacomo Preparata. How about that? That's good stuff. I got to get on top of that because you guys know that you want me to sound like I'm making some sense and like maybe I've read a book and I know a little something when I talk to you. So I got to do what I got to do. I'll get started. I think I'm going to get started on Conjuring Hitler first. That seems like something I'm going to need to do a video about at one time, right? At some point, right? At any rate, I've mentioned it before. I've studied about it a little bit in the past, but I haven't read the book itself. So it's time I do what I got to do. All right, let's talk. The whole Macron business, right? One of the things, Garland has been saying for for a long time, one of the things I say, if they could, they would, but they can't, so they won't, right? And I always say it fast for some reason. I think it sounds cooler rather than saying, well, if they could. Nah, it's too slow. So we go with if they could, they would, but they can't, so they won't, right? And that is NATO. Look, Scott Ritter's been telling you for a long time that NATO's a paper tiger. NATO doesn't have the teeth. NATO doesn't have, and this was before the Ukraine conflict. Scott was saying, look, NATO ain't got the horsepower. They just don't have the horsepower to do what they need to do, what they would like to do, right? When it comes to bullying superpowers, right? Bullying superpowers. So when we talk about this whole conflict regarding Russia and Ukraine, and NATO and Ukraine. And we historically, this is what people bring up historically. Well, let's not forget, what was it? Charles the 12th of Sweden that decided he was going to wander into Russia and give them stinking Ruskies what for, why not, and don't do it again. Didn't work out. Napoleon had like 600,000 man army back when 15,000 was a lot of men, right? He had this gigantic army that he pulled from all over Europe. He's going into Russia. He's going to give them Ruskies what for. Nah, didn't work. Right? On and on I go, right? So bottom line is this. One of the things you have to think about when you talk about why is it that Russia tends to win these wars. Now, don't get me wrong. The Russians have a history of being attacked and being invaded, and they understand that they got to fight off the enemy, and they know how to defend themselves, and they have the wherewithal to defend themselves, right? They're very smart people. The interesting thing about the Russians is this. They're very smart. And their enemies think that they're dumb. They're like, oh, the Russians are stupid, inferior, snowy inwards, whatever you want to call it, right? Anything they can think of negative, the Russians are something negative. They are inferior creatures. But when it comes to an adversary, right? The first rule of conflict. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but if you ever heard this, what is the first rule of conflict? Easy. My a self-defense instructor taught me this, right? I never thought of it before then. The first rule of conflict is never underestimate your adversary. And what I've always been taught is overestimate your adversary. If some guy's standing there and he's like, Garland, I'm going to punch you in the face. The first thing I should think is, he's bigger than me. He's faster than me. He's stronger than me. He's better trained than I am at fighting. I won't have a chance against him. As long as I have that in my mind, I'll do everything I can to avoid a fight because I'll be concerned that I'm going to lose it. Now I'll say to myself, I'm going to protect myself in every way I can, in every way I know how. But I'm going to assume that this person is just, is just an advanced fighter, and that I'm going to have a great difficulty and would probably lose. And that will give me the mindset I need, right, to prevent a fight. You don't want to fight with somebody if you're going to get your butt kicked. Right. So that's perfect. Never underestimate your adversary, because if you think, man, that guy's weak and slow and strong, and he ends up that he's fast and quick and powerful, or he's weak and slow, right, and it turns out that he's quick and powerful, then guess what? You get your butt kicked. You lose. So never underestimate your adversary. So what happens is, number one, the people who have gone against the Russians because they don't like the Russians, they say they're inferior. Well, they're already at a disadvantage because they think that their adversary is inferior. Number one. Number two, here's the other part, and this is the big part about it. And the Russians are very bright, and they're warriors if need to be. They're not. It's not a warrior nation in that they're looking for war, but if you kick them, they kick back real hard, and they don't mind fighting. They're not afraid of a fight, and it's a defensive fight. But here's the part about it that's important, right? It's a world power, and Russia is not going to go out picking a fight. So if you think about this, if you want to fight Russia, you got to go to Russia. If you want to fight me, you got to come to my house. You got to break down the door, and you got to fight me. And I'll be waiting for you. I'm going to have shotguns, machine guns, med dogs, gorillas, bears, everything I can think. And for you, when you come to my, think about this. Just in a traditional war, right? If most people know this, if you have an entrenched enemy and you have an army that's attacking an entrenched enemy, the normal number is 3-1. You want 3-1 over your enemy to be able to take out a dug-in enemy, an entrenched enemy, right? Napoleon, Hitler, whoever it is, they're going to an entrenched enemy. They've got a superpower there. They're going to the border of a superpower to fight, to knock that guy's door down, and to come in and to kill everybody in the house and take all of his stuff. How's that going to work out? So one of the issues that, if you really think about it, what happens with Russia? The hordes, they are like, oh, what do they call them? The something from the north, the barbarians from the north, whatever. But here's the problem line. You got to go to the barbarians from the north, and you got to fight them in the north, and they're smart and powerful. So now what happens? Napoleon goes and he's going to go in their house? No, he ain't. You ain't getting my house. You might get in. You ain't coming out alive. Hitler, we're coming to your house. Really? And what are you going to do? We're going to kill your kids and everybody when we get in. Well, you got a fight on your hands. So what happens is, inevitably, the West, or whoever it is, comes to Russia and comes to them. They're not fighting on a neutral field. Russia's not invading them. Russia has every advantage. So now Russia is a superpower, an army superpower. Here's the difference. The U.S. is a superpower army, right? Sure, I'll give it that. But it's got all this crap in bases all over South America, military and military assets there. It's got bases all over Asia, military and military assets there. Bases all over the Middle East, military assets there. Bases all Africa, bases all over Africa, military assets there, right? So the U.S. has military assets all over the world. That army is not focused in one place, so it is not super strong anywhere. See, the U.S. uses expeditionary tactics, right? It sends out an army, boom, out to there to fight over there. But if you got army all over the place and military assets all over the place, and you're hitting somebody here, you're going to send a small group. You can't say, let's take all of the soldiers and all of the military equipment from Africa, from South America, from China, Asia, everywhere, and we'll bring them all together and then we'll fight here. No, you can't do that, because you think you're the world hegemon, superpower, imperial power everywhere. So you got to have everything all over the place everywhere so you can dominate everybody. Russia's really got to do it one place. They got some assets in Syria. Yes, they do, but not much. For the most part, Russia's army is on Russia's border to protect Russia's border. That's what they do. That's the only thing they do. That is the whole thing. So you've got this huge military that's spread all over the world. You've got this other really superpower military that's there to defend its border. Who's going to be harder to fight? Because if you want to fight Russia, you can't fight Russia in South America. You're not fighting Russia. Oh, this is not like, oh, we're going to, the Battle of Midway over here and then the Battle of North Africa over here. Nope. You got to come up to Russia's border and fight them. You got to fight this powerful army that's sitting there that has all kind of surface to surface missiles. You know why they're good? Because they can fire them from inside Russia. They've got all of these planes where they can fire missiles at you off of these planes deep inside Russia's airspace. They can hit you if you're on Russia's border. I mean, think about it. They got a lot of they've got a lot of missiles, 500 kilometers, 300 kilometers, some 1,700 kilometers. You're on their border. You're 100 miles. Ukraine, you're 100 miles, 50 miles, 20 miles from their border. That means they can send 1,000 miles back, 500 miles back, and just rain missiles on you. Well out of range of any anti-aircraft stuff you have or anything. Well out of range. Sit back there where it's safe and just rain hell on you all day long, and there's nothing you can do about it because you've come to their border. You got to bring your stuff to their border. You got to get your stuff to their border and fight them. So now think about what Macron is saying. Yeah, we might have to fight Russia. Let's go to their border. Let's go to Russia's border and fight Russia. Wonder how it's going to turn out. You're talking about a little old France, the French military, and Germany, Spain, Italy, these others are like, oh, you got to be shitting me, brother. Oh, that's not happening. So you're saying, let me get this straight. Let I get this straight. We're going to take our troops who are already out of ammunition, right? We're going to take our lazy, schnitzel-eating, beer-filled troops from Germany. They're out of tanks, they're out of ammo, and they're out of luck. We're going to send them to Russia's border to fight Russia. The Germans are like, yeah, that ain't happening, dude. Macron's like, oh, yeah? Well, let's talk to Lithuania and Slovakia. So literally, he's talking to the Baltic states. What do they got, like 12 guys? The Baltic states? The Baltic states? I mean, the Russian army would basically pick their teeth with the Baltic states. They would use them for toothpicks. That's what the Russian army would do with the Baltic states, use them for toothpicks. They wouldn't need to send the military out. They just like cough. It rocks. That's all they need. I mean, the Baltic states. Really? And if that ain't bad enough, if the Baltic states, I mean, like, oh, they got 1 million people, maybe 2. All of the Baltic states together don't have like as many people as the state of Maryland that I live in, and that's just all small. I don't think the Russian military is sitting there game planning how they're going to fight the Baltic states. I think they're like, hey, as we go through the Baltic states, you might just want to put on brakes and kill everybody on the way by, all the soldiers on the way by if we get in a fight here. But here's the bottom line. If you fight the Russians, they ain't going nowhere. They ain't coming out to the Baltic states. They're not heading for France. They're not en route to the English Channel. If you and think about what Macron's saying, right? Think about the bottom line of what he's saying. We might have to fight the Russians. And where would you do that, Mr. Macron? At the Russian border, of course. We must, if you want to fight the evil Russians, the imperialist Russians that want to overthrow the world. But if you want to fight them, you only got one alternative. You got to go to their border to fight them because they ain't coming out to screw with nobody. That kind of tells the whole story there in a way, if you really think about it. If you want to fight, that's like, hey, I'm going to go kick Garland's ass. Oh, when I get my hands on Garland, I'm going to tear him to shreds. Really? What do? Well, I called Garland and I said, meet me at a neutral site. What Garland said, nah, I don't want to fight. Then I came out and I outside of his house and I stood there with a megaphone. Garland, come out and fight me now. And Garland slid up the window and said, no, and slammed the window down. So if you're going to fight Garland, you're going to have to go walk up his driveway. You're going to have to go on the porch and knock on the door. Boom, 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 boom. Garland, yeah, come out so you can fight me. No. You have to break down the door and come in and get Garland because he ain't going to fight you unless you come to him. Now you come in Garland's house and you want to fight him then, it ain't going to be a pleasant time. All I have to say is you might not leave. You might not even make it in the door, right? And that's most people. I don't want to fight you. You try to break in my house, I'll kill you. That's the average person. That's the Russian. So Macron's now saying we've got to stop the Russians from attacking France. How? By going to the Russian border to fight the Russians. Well, you call me, skeptical, but I don't think that France being like completely out of ammo, knowing that all of Europe has enough ammo to last about 10 minutes in a war with Russia. And Russia's already said, you guys attack us, we're going to nuke the hell out of you. For some reason, I think he's bluffing. And you know what's funny? People will tell you how they really feel. What do they always say? Putin says, look, guys, I don't want any trouble. But if you all decide you're going to attack me at the same time, if I feel at some point as though my country's threatened, I'm nuking your ass. And what do they say? He's bluffing. You know why? Because they're bluffing, right? A criminal, a liar thinks everybody's lying. A thief thinks everybody's going to steal his stuff. And a guy who's bluffing thinks everybody else on the other side's bluffing. That's all it is. They're telling on themselves. Putin's bluffing. He won't do anything. Yeah, Macron, I will believe when I see a bunch of freaking guys with red beret and baguettes hanging out of their backpack, traipsing across the steppes of Ukraine. That's when I'll believe it. See, one of the things that happened is this. I don't know if you know, a couple of weeks back, apparently the French had gotten froggy anyway, and they really sent in. They had already sent apparently, any number of what do they call them, military advisors, right? So they got real froggy. The French decide. My understanding of it is this: we're going to send hundreds of our soldiers. We're going to just as they call them, sheep dip them, right? We're going to take them. We're going to say you're no longer a French soldier. You're now a mercenary, and you can go fight the Russians as a mercenary. And the Russians were like, let's send these baguette-eating sons of bitches to Ukraine, are you? We got something for them, right? So they come there, they all gather together, as Frenchmen will do. And I guess they were drinking wine. I don't know. And thinking baguettes, cheese, maybe grapes, things of that nature. They're hanging out at some training facility, and the Russians rained down a bunch of missiles on them and blew the hell out of everyone, all of them, and killed most of them. And I kind of think that got under Macron's craw a little bit. I think Macron was like, hey, that wasn't fair. You're supposed to let us fight you. And the Russians are like, yeah. You might want to dig Napoleon up and ask him how fair we play in the game, play the game, right? It's like, I put it like this. It was like this. You ever see, what was that movie? God, I can't remember it. The name of the movie. But at any rate, this guy had to fight this great big guy, right? This guy was a giant. He looked like he was about 6'8", like 290 pounds. And this regular guy, my side had to fight him. And then the big guy pulls out a knife. I mean, this thing's the Rambo knife. It looked like a sword, right? He's got this big knife. The little guy looks at the big guy and says, "Okay, the first thing we got to do is establish some rules." And the big guy looks at him and spits. Says, "There ain't no rules." And the guy just looks at him and kicked him in the nuts. Wham! The big guy grabs his groin, he falls down, and the guy looks at him and says, "Okay, have it your way." No rules, right? Okay. Bottom line, that's kind of the way they ran things. The Russians were like, "Look, guys, I'm trying to be cool here, but don't be sending no damn baguette-eating sons of bitches here to give us a hard time and kill our troops." The French were like, "Au contraire, mon frère. Watch this." And they sent a bunch of them in, and the Russians are like, "Yeah, no, you watch this." And they blew the hell out of every one of them. And I think, just maybe I'm wrong, but I think the French weren't real thrilled with that. I think Macron was kind of pissed. I think it got up under his craw, but I think they were sending them a message. The message is, hey, come on, man, we don't play this stuff. You come to our border, right? You mess around, screw around, and find out, right? And that's basically what happened. And so now Macron has been pissed ever since, but it ain't going to do him no good. So now he's bluffing. He's like, yeah, I tell you what. I got probably muster 50,000 troops. Ain't going to have real good air cover. Probably be a little short of ammunition, and their survivability, a week maybe max. But we're going to send them anyway. We'll fix you. And they said this. This is what I love. One of the things that's going around now is that Macron said, we might have to draw some red lines here. Well, if the Russians go to take, I think, Odessa or Kiev, that's it. We're coming in. We might have to come in. Now, of course, the French military and the people in France were like, you got to be shitting me. No! No, we're not going to the Russian border. Been down there. We have historical context, right? No, not happening. They called the Germans. Hey, what do you think about taking on the Ruskies? And the Germans, and even Schultz was like, oh, hold on a second. Let me check something. Slam. You got to be out of your mind, dude. Not happening. So they called around. Everybody's knowing, of course, Latvia, Slovakia, the Baltic states. Those people collectively have the IQ of a freaking grape, right? Yeah, we hate the Russians. We're gonna take them out, right? I mean, have you looked at like their economies? The Baltic states, their economies are gone to hell. They're going to fix the Russians. They're going to kick like old 75-year-old Russians out because they can't speak like Slovakian or Latvian, whatever the hell, right? I mean, they're just making fools of themselves. They're like standing in front of the U.S. empire saying, "Ha ha! Look at us. We can hate the Russians more than anybody," not knowing that the U.S. empire will leave them hanging high and dry. Let me tell you something: Latvia, Slovakia, and in your ilk. Do you really think that the U.S. would come in and protect you if the Russians rolled over you like a steamroller tomorrow? Do you really believe that Article 5 would be invoked and the United States would say, hey, let's risk it all? Let's risk nuclear war for Latvia, Slovakia, Vilnius. Can't have Vilnius go down. Why, we're certainly willing to trade Chicago for Vilnius in a nuclear war. That's not happening. You poor idiots actually believe the neocons. You think the neocons are actually going to invoke Article 5 and come protect you if the Russians come smash you to pieces? That's not going to happen. You will be smashed to pieces. And you know what the U.S. will do? They'll call the world and they'll say, we've got to add more sanctions to Russia. Oh, don't you want to invoke Article 5? They'll be like, yeah, well, we're working on that. But just go with sanctions for now. And maybe at some point we'll do a little bit more. But we're thinking sanctions ought to pretty much get the job done. That's all you'll ever get from them. Poor suckers. But anyway, so bottom line, for those who are afraid of a French attack on Russia, think about this. It wouldn't be NATO. It would be France. They would have no NATO protections. There's no Article 5. If you go in there ain't no Article 5. There ain't nothing in there. And if I'm the Russians, I'm thinking to myself, we need to make an example out of this guy, right? We need to make an example. These people have come in here and challenged us. And you know what? If we just let them get away with that, if we just let them wander into Ukraine, 50,000 baguette eating sons of bitches come into Ukraine and point their guns at us. And then we're like, hey, we're okay with that. Just don't do anymore. I know the Russians would be like, if we let them do it, this is mission creep. There's more coming from them. If we let them do it, they're going to, next thing you know, they're going to start working on the bases and they're going to build up the bases so that the Ukrainians can fly out of the bases. Then there'll be missile launchers and who knows what. If I will guarantee you this, it ain't happening. But let's just say the Ukrainians and the Latvians or whoever the hell, Slovakians end up showing at Ukraine. The Russians are going to blast them to hell. They have to blast them to hell. They got to send the message so that if Spain or Olaf Scholz or somebody sends to eat some fat, overweight, schnitzel-eating bastards in, that before they do it, that those people are like, dude, we don't want to go. Yeah, did you see what happened to the French? The French went in. Where are they now? Well, they've gone on to baguette heaven, my friend. The Russians have sent them to baguette heaven. Yeah, we don't want to go to schnitzel heaven, Olaf, so we ain't going. So bottom line is, the Russians, what are they going to do to the Russians? They're damn near out of ammo when they get there. And they don't have, there's no Article 5, there's no nothing. You're sending 50,000 French troops in to fight 700,000 Russian troops. I'll put it like this. But they have 800,000 troops in Ukrainian army. And where are they now? It's like the old shows, Where Are They Now, where they show you some, hot star from the 80s and you look at him or her now and they're like overweight and bald and they had a bunch of, surgeries all over the place and they look like a plastic doll and you're like, oh, God. I better go back and watch the movie. And look, they looked a lot better in the movie, right? Bottom line, look, I'm saying a lot to say a little. I don't believe France will by themselves go get Slovakia and Latvia and Slovenia and God only knows places like this and find a dozen unequipped soldiers. It's like you got those countries that have like we've given our whole air force to to Ukraine and it got challenged. Really, what was your air force? Well, we had a helicopter. I think we had an old F-16 or something, didn't we? Yeah, we had an old F-16. We gave them to that and that got shot down. What do you have now? Some kites. We could like fly our kites over the Russians and cut the string. Maybe the kites will drop on them. I don't know. That's all they got. So, I mean, they got nothing. So now they're going to take the only soldiers they have to like protect their country and send them to Ukraine. I don't see that happening. And if they do, which they won't, the Russians would blow them to hell, blow them to hell immediately. But the bottom line is this. If the truth of the matter is this, if NATO was to decide we're going to send in troops, they get smashed to hell. And now there are those who say, well, you know, the U.S. has some military assets. You know, they got lots of planes and standoff weapons and stuff like that. That's World War III, brother. Is the U.S. going to do that for Europe? The U.S. would let Europe get burned to the ground first. Do not. You know, people who think that the U.S. gives a crap about Europe. Victoria Nuland said, F the EU. That's how they feel about the EU. Look, they're setting the EU up to get nuked and smashed right now. You think they care? You think they're going to do anything? The Samsonite option, that's all they ever exercise. Ukraine will be smashed to bits, and the neocons are setting everything up to walk away now. And if the same thing happened to Europe, they'd be happy. Look, after World War II, Europe was flat, impoverished, and completely inured to the United States. They'd be happy to see Europe look the same way again. Nothing would make them happier than to see a war where both Europe and Russia got flattened. And that way they're like, well, great. Hey, you know what? Where things look just like they were after World War II, and we're in pretty good shape. Yay! Hooray! We've gotten rid of two threatening adversaries at once. Both of them threatened our our ability to dominate the world economically, both Europe and Russia. So we got them both flat. Great, good work. On we go to the next one. They ain't on your side, Europe. That's what I'm trying to say. So bottom line is this. Macron will keep bluffing for a while. They're scared to death. They understand what I know, and that is, barring some black swan event, Trump's going to win. This thing's over. Barring some black swan event, Biden's finished. I don't know what the Democrats are going to try to change him out. Maybe change him out at the convention. But at this point, it don't matter. The Democrats are done. Not even bringing up Gaza. I was talking to people today. I was talking to some people. I was at an event today. I was talking to some people, and like a guy that I know who owns a lawn service. He's a hardworking guy, makes a good living. He owns a lawn, and they do all kinds of everything from snow to grass cutting to putting in gardens and all kinds of landscaping and all that stuff. Nice sized business, does real well. And I was talking to the guy, whatever, and he's like, "Oh, do you think Trump's going to win? You think?" And I said, "Well," and I thought he was a black guy. I thought he was going to say, "Oh, Trump, blah blah blah." And he's like, "Well, things were kind of better when Trump was in fiscally." And I just listened, right? And because I want to hear what people are saying. He's like, "Yeah, Now, if this had been 4 years ago in a black community, all you'd hear was, 'Oh, Trump, my God, he's horrible,' right?" And now people are like, "Well, geez, the price of groceries is unbelievable." And he starts telling me how he spends $900. He's got a wife and kids, right? He spends $900 a month on groceries. And then he starts telling me how much he spends a day on gas, for his equipment and all of the stuff that he does for his work and his workers and all that, right? He's got a cruise and all that. He's telling me like the amount he spends. He's like, "Yeah." And when the conversation is over, I just tried to listen. I realized something. This guy's probably going to vote for Trump. And forget Gaza. There's a bunch of, and I'm no Trump fan. And I people like say Trump's terrible. I'm like, look, I'm a guy who, I'm a revolutionary minded dude, right? I'm not looking at Trump or Biden saying, hooray, one of those guys is the answer. Certainly not. I'm just trying as a an unbiased analyst to understand what the sentiment is and that is out there. In America, the black vote is critical for the Democrats. Let's not forget what did Bill Clinton got 96% of the black vote. Obama got 98%. Biden got 92%. Trump got 8%, which is more than anybody's ever gotten before, right? In 2020. Okay. So all I'm trying to do is figure that out. So don't get in the chats telling me about Trump is good, bad, or indifferent. That's not part of this conversation. All I'm saying is I'm talking to a working class guy that works hard. And what I've heard a bunch of times is, and it's politics, and this is the reality of politics, of what people really vote on. Do they vote on whether they like the guy, whether they think he's a racist or this or that, whatever they think? No. You know what they vote on? They vote on what it costs them to live and feed their kids. It costs more to live and feed your kids. A lot of black people are working class people, and working class people looking around saying it's high. A lot of them will stay home. Some of them are going to vote for Trump. If that happens, if some of those numbers we see out there, 20% of black vote go for Trump, the Democrats would be, annihilated. They'd be annihilated if that happens, and it could happen. So at any rate, I've seen enough to say, unless something dramatically changes, Trump's going to win. And I think part of what we're seeing going on now in Europe is the elites horrified that Trump's going to win. They're horrified. I'm reading articles. They're saying, oh my God, Trump might drop out of NATO. What are we going to do if the U.S. leaves NATO? You'll be far better off is what you'll be. You'll be far better off. NATO is not anything for Europe. Hates Europe. But keep in mind something. We're talking about the ruling elite, which moves me to the second half of this show. We're talking about the ruling elite. So the bottom line is, for those who are afraid that NATO is going to go to Ukraine's border, I just don't see the odds of that. I don't see that happening. I don't see that. Could France or some schlumps decide to do it? I think Macron will get his ass kicked in France if he tries. Can you imagine him saying, all right, we're going to send 10,000 Frenchmen to Ukraine, and they go and they start building an air base for the Ukrainians to fly F-16s out of? What do you think the Russians are going to do? Plaster them with missiles. And then the body bags start coming home to France, and the French people will be, oh, we told you not to do this, and now our sons are coming home dead. They'll cut his freaking head off. They want to do it already, and they will cut his head off for sure. So Macron is not in a position. Oh, by the way, did I mention that France is up to its ears in debt? It's broke. That, in a nutshell, if we're honest, Russia ran them the hell out of Africa. Russia ran them the hell out of Africa. Let's not be naive here. Come on. The Africans went to the Russia-Africa summit. And a week later, a week after they left Russia, they started overthrowing the Western governments and kicked France the hell out. I'm not going to say that Russia was involved, but I'm going to say they may have been motivated by the Russia summit, right? So I'm saying one of the reasons the French are really pissed at Russia is they were robbing the hell out of Africa. They were robbing those people damn blind, like friggin' imperial colonial bandits. And Russia, I'm thinking, maybe assisted the African countries with putting a stop to that bull crap. France is up to its ears in debt. It's broke. It's hungry. It's running out of baguettes. It's about half of the country's people who came, they're suffering from their colonial ways. They had these countries, Algeria and all of these countries that they owned with a lot of Muslim people in them. And a lot of those people have gone back to France. And now France is loaded up with people who aren't originally from France. So they got all kind of problems in France. And there's French people that ain't all that cool with that. And that doesn't mean that they're all a bunch of racists. Because I would imagine if the people in Burkina Faso or Niger, who was doing whatever their culture likes to do, and 1 million Frenchmen showed up and said, hey, we're going to start hanging out in Burkina Faso now, and we're going to turn it into France Junior. I would imagine the people in Burkina Faso would say, we got our customs and way of doing things. A lot of damn Frenchmen showing up. Who the hell wants that, right? So it doesn't mean that the people in France or whatever kind of country it is are just a bunch of racist pigs just because they got a history, they got a culture, and it's French. And maybe they're not so crazy about people from all over about their colonial ruling elites loading their country up because they're destabilizing countries all over the world, loading their country up with people from other where it's kind of, changing their lifestyle and their culture and all of that. It doesn't mean they're hateful racist. It just means that they kind of like having a French lifestyle and culture and they feel like it's disappearing, and it is. So figure it out any way you want, right? Anyway, let's continue. So bottom line is this: France is in trouble. Economically, it's in trouble. Politically, it's unstable. Militarily, it's weak as hell. Doesn't have much of an air force. They've given what little they had mostly to Ukraine, and Russia's already blown the hell out of it. So if they want to send a few Frenchmen over there to get killed, they can. Doubt if they will. I just think there'll be too much pushback in France. Now, to keep in mind, Macron don't give a crap what France wants. He works for the global elites. So, there's that too. At any rate, so that's where we are. Macron is saying things that the people who run his country are completely opposed to. Again, which takes us to the second part, George Galloway. Why did I say that Galloway equals Putin's prophecy? For this reason. I can't find it. I'd have to look and read all of his speeches over again from the very beginning. It may be the first speech that he made on the night of the beginning of just, right around when he's going to SMO. But there are other people here that might remember this. And one of the things that he said, he talked about the ruling elite in the West, but he said that, and I'm just paraphrasing, that he suspects that there will be a new group of ruling elite, right? He just basically said, now that's not implying that they're going to get their heads cut off, but what he realized was this. This is what he said. It was I just called it a prophecy. It was prophetic. I think what he understood was he's looking at a country, he's looking at a region of the world, the so-called West, wherein the people in charge are not acting in the best interest of their constituents. And in fact, they're acting in a way that's extremely damaging to the lives of their constituents. And he suspected, and this is not anything that it would take Nostradamus or Einstein to figure out, that at some point, the friction between the people, the contradictions between what a government is required to do by the people and what the governments in the West are doing will become too much to maintain stability, will become far too great to maintain stability. When you got people saying, we want food, man. We want better prices. We want jobs. And the ruling elite are saying, we don't care about that. We got an ideology that says we got to dominate the world. And you ain't getting none of that either. Even if we can dominate the world, you don't get any of that. But it's important to us to dominate the world. Therefore, all this business about food and jobs and such a frippery, we're going to have to ignore that right now so that you can die on foreign battlefields, so you can act in the best interest of our ideology, which does you absolutely no good, right? That's where the ruling elites are, that will cause such friction and instability that at some point the people will take action in the West and will cause a new group of ruling elites to arise. That's kind of what Putin was saying. And when I heard it, I thought, yeah, I agree with him. And now it's getting obvious. Let's talk about George Galloway. So what happened? Was that an anomaly? Well, the fact of the matter is that I think was it about Gaza? Yes, it was. Certainly it was about Gaza. He was in an area with a lot of Muslims, etc. But there's a lot of Muslims all over Europe now, right? But the bottom line is this: don't discount the fact that or overlook the reality that people in Europe and in the UK are living in a depression. They're being given the rhetoric. It's a recession. Yeah, and I've said this about it being a recession. I forgot. The Sahara Desert is, I don't know, 246 million years old, I think, something like that. Let's go with that for the sake of this argument, of this discussion. If 246 million years ago, you'll notice that things were getting kind of dusty, not much moisture in the region. And you said, look at the Sahara Desert. Looks like it's going to have a drought. You'd have been wrong. Why? Because a drought implies that the weather that will be experienced is of a temporary nature. A drought means it will end. What the Sahara Desert was experiencing was not a drought, was it? It had materially changed. The region was no longer a whatever it was before. I don't know if it was jungle. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was before, it wasn't that anymore. It wasn't getting any rain. It was now a desert. Okay. My point being, the EU, the UK, etc., they talk about they're experiencing recessions or, blah, blah, blah. A recession implies that the economic downturn is of a temporary nature. It ain't a recession. It's not a recession. It's not temporary. You have changed materially the foundation of the economy of Europe. A big part of the foundation was very inexpensive industrial materials from Russia. Everything from the wheat and the sunflower seed oil to, they were literally getting wood, coal, energy, you name it. All this stuff is coming from Russia. So you have a good, strong economy. Why? Because you got a guy next door that provides stuff for you cheap. There you go. You have a supply line, right? You have a source of raw materials. You want to build something, you want to source your materials, and you want to source them as inexpensively as possible. You got the best in the world there. Russia's next door. It's got everything you need, and it's going to sell it to you cheap. Doesn't want any trouble. And the U.S. said, nah, we don't like that, because then we can't control you, and then you're going to get stronger, and you won't listen to us anymore, and Russia will get stronger, and we can't steal their stuff. So let's put a stop to that. They put a stop to it. Well, that's great. You put a stop to Europe's economy, and they're going to become impoverished. And it ain't going to be a recession, because it's not going to be of a temporary nature. So what happens? The people don't like that. And they don't like ruling elites who will do that to them. And so what's happening? What did Putin say? He suspected that there would be a new group of ruling elites. Paraphrase. That wasn't exact words, I don't believe. What George Galloway, what we're seeing is the very beginning of that as soon as the people in Europe get the opportunity to vote, they're voting for something else. Now Galloway's saying he's going to run 100 of these people across the nation. Well, they got a problem, don't they? Because what happens if he gets 20, 30, 40? What happens if he has enough of them that they really can't form a coalition without his government? They're in deep and serious trouble. And what happens if they really start kicking butt? And a lot of them win. So what we're talking about is the people. What we're talking about is all this discussion about democracy by the ruling elite. What they meant was this. When they say our democracy, they meant our, meaning the ruling elite's democracy. They get a chance to decide, to figure out who's going to be in power and how the policies are going to go. Democracy is ruled by the people. The ocracy part, the ruling part, sure, but it's oligarchy. It is corporatocracy. It is the people in power making the decision. And the problem they have is that while they do that, they have to maintain the illusion that the people are choosing, that the people are making the decisions, that this is all about the best interest of the people. So the problem they have is, how do you screw the people over? How do you make sure the people can't choose their leadership? How do you make sure the leadership doesn't act on behalf of the people? At the same time, you maintain an illusion that the people are in charge. That can't be done anymore. Why? You can do that as long as they're providing them something, as long as you're giving the people something, providing something for the people. You can keep the people off your back. You can keep them at bay. But when it gets to the point, you're screwing up their health service. You're taxing the hell out of them. You're providing nothing for them. You're telling the people, we're going to bring in Ukrainian refugees, and you're going to have to help pay for them and feed them and take care of them. We're going to do all these things. You're going to have to suffer. You're going to have to bite the bullet a little bit. No, come to think of it, you're going to have to bite the bullet a lot on behalf of this Ukrainian military conflict. Oh, by the way, we're losing it. So you're going to have to bite the bullet and hurt on behalf of a conflict that we are losing, and we never had a chance of winning, and we lied to you about the whole time. Oh, and by the way, you're screwed for life, because this is never going to change. It wasn't temporary. For a war that lasted a couple years and then we lost, your entire future has been sacrificed. And the people are like, yeah, we'll take some. How about George Galloway? And George Galloway, the problem they got is this. And here's the problem that the ruling elite have. They're lying. And a guy like Galloway is going to tell the truth. Hey, here's what it is. You don't have to be a genius to tell the truth. You just got to be kind of honest. So now they're going to have people running saying, yeah, this ain't right. And they've been exposed by Gaza. Look, we're the good guys. We're standing up for justice. Putin is evil. Really, what are you going to do now? Well, we're going to genocide a bunch of innocent men, women, and children. But let's get back to the point where we're the good guys and we're trying to stop the evil Putin. They are being exposed by their actions in Gaza, by their evil, vicious, brutal, genocidal actions in Gaza. The people are turning on them for that. They're like, you sons of bitches, you lied to us. You said you were the good guys. You're low-life scum. You're genocidal maniacs. Oh, and by the way, you're screwing us too. Our jobs are gone. Everything's gone. We're screwed. And now you think you're going to stay in charge? If this is a democracy, bad news, we get to vote you out. If this ain't a democracy, let us know and we'll kill you out. If they just say, well, this ain't a democracy, so we're going to do whatever we want. You are the schmucks and the the hoi polloi, the unwashed. You will do what you're told. You're peasants, kind of, let's be honest. We faked you out with democracy, but it's really still a feudal system. We're the lords. You're the knaves. The knaves must listen to the lords. So here's what we're telling you to do. Shut up and get ready. We're going to kind of bag you up and send you somewhere to die in a war. And you'll come back in a body bag. Nothing personal. It's just what we do. And the people are like, yeah, we've kind of gotten wise to that. So that ain't going to work. So now they're voting in Galloway. The UK ruling elite is going berserk. But you rest assured this. In France, in Germany, in other places, those people are looking. They're like, I kind of remember Putin saying there'll be another group of ruling elite. And now that I look, it looks like that's starting. That's starting. This is the beginning of it. This is nothing but an indicator. This ain't that big a deal. It seems to be a big deal. But there's an avalanche coming all over Europe. So what the ruling elite are doing now is trying to figure out how to dispense with the illusion of democracy. Well, not really. No, that's wrong. They're trying to figure out how they can completely thwart democracy. And if it's possible to maintain the illusion, and if not, how can they just bring the hammer down on the people and say, we're going to censor you, we're going to punish you, we'll gulag you, we'll do anything, all the things that we said Putin is an evil dictator, that he'll do, yeah, well, forget that. We're going to do all that stuff to you if you think you're going to vote somebody in that's going to act on your behalf. Ain't happening. So now the contradiction between what the ruling elite was saying and what they were doing has grown to the extent where the people are not willing to put up with it. And George Galloway is just the beginning. So what happens when, and of course you got the AfD in Germany. Now, what we're told is that they're the Nazis. But here's what I have to say. You're going to tell me that the AfD, I don't know that much about them. I understand it's a right-wing group. They're anti-immigrant, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to agree with their policies because I'm left-wing and right-wing. But if the German people want to choose the AfD, the alternative for Deutschland, then that's, if there is a democracy, they should be able to do that. But what you're looking at is a ruling elite that at this point they only got one option. They're going to have to throw out every party like the AfD or whoever the hell people want to run against them that's outside of the norm. They're going to have to throw them away, get rid of them. They're going to have to completely thwart democracy and stop democracy to keep the people from throwing them out of office and putting who they want in office. And the problem is that if the ruling elite finally just say, we're throwing down the hammer, here's what we're going to do. The AfD, you're illegal. Oh, Galloway, your whole Workers' Party, illegal. They can't vote for them, you're out. At that point, what they guarantee is the violence. At that point, see, you've told the people that they have democracy. You've maintained the illusion of democracy. Once the illusion of democracy ends up, right, if you make peaceful revolution unavailable to the people, then you will guarantee that they will choose the path of violent revolution. And if the people have had it with your asses and you just say, well, what we're going to do then in that case is we're going to make it illegal to vote in anybody that would go against us, at that point, they're going to get violent. At that point, they're going to, do they have another alternative? They've got two alternatives. One is to sit there and let you destroy everything that they believe in and throw them to some foreign battlefield to die or get them nuked. They can do that. They can accept that they're powerless. They can accept that everything you've been telling them for the last century is a lie and that they have no power and just go back to being serfs and peasants. They can accept that, which I doubt if they will, or they can kill you. I suspect they'll take the latter. I suspect people will take the latter. So this is where we're going in Europe, where the floodgates have been opened by George Galloway. The prophecy of Vladimir Putin that the ruling elite will be replaced has begun, and the decisions by the ruling elite will have to be made as to whether or not they accept their fate or they create a dynamic where they're all going to be killed. Because that, to me, those are the two options. I think that a lot of the countries, Italy, Spain, and probably even Germany, there are strong elements there that understand that, and they know that they can only go but so far. But even in Germany, you got some Russian hating, Nazis who are like, nah, we're willing to, go as far as we can. The problem is this, though, they're unarmed. They know they're unarmed. They can't really go fight the Germans even if they want to, because they don't have anything to fight them with. Everything's gone. It's over for them. I've read that Germany's got like 30 working planes or something. I mean, if you put all the planes together, they don't have that much. And then what does the U.S. do? If the U.S. says, look, okay, we're going to send in all of our planes and ships and stuff, and then they go to war, what happens if they do that? And they look, let's just say for the sake of argument, the U.S. says, that's it, we're going in and attack the Russians in Ukraine. What is the first thing the U.S. is going to do? It's going to turn every air base that the U.S. has, every military base in Europe and anywhere near the Russians is going to be rained with salvos of missiles and turned into crap. It's going to make sure that the U.S. can't use any of their missiles. Oh, and what about the ships in the area? You don't think they're going to feel the wrath of the hypersonic missiles? You don't think Russia has a list of targets that are all sighted in and targeted in, and there's hypersonic missiles faced at every single one of them? So if the U.S. decided we're going to come in and take a swipe at Russia, to say they're going to get their nose bloodied would be the understatement of the year, because the Russians would understand we can't just play around with these guys. We've got to hit them with everything we have. We got to knock them out on day one. We got to make sure that they can't fight back, that they are crippled. It's kind of like, again, Putin's a martial artist. What do you do if somebody attacks them? Do you throw a punch? Boom. No, you're throwing combinations. Boom, 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 boom. You're kicking, you're hitting, you're punching until your adversary is defeated, right? You're not going to throw a punch and go, whap. Is he okay? Is he going to get? No, that someone has attacked you. They've grabbed you. They laid hands on you. At that point, you're going to act in a violent manner. You've been attacked. What do you do? What happens if you hit them and then you're like, what are they going to do? And they pull out a giant knife. You can't wait around for that. They grab you, man. You get those fingers. Yeah, you back. And you don't just push them back so they'll go down. You snap them. You don't just put some pressure on that hand so maybe they'll drop back. You snap that. Pow! You snap that. You break it. If you get your hands on something, you get a finger. Whap! You break that finger. You get some eye, you gouge the hell out. It's life and death. At that point, now that they've engaged you, it's life and death. You don't just go, doink. Let me see. Is his eyes? Man, you try to drive your freaking fingers through his skull. This man's attacked you. You don't know him. He may be trying to kill you. You give him everything you got. When you stop, either I'm down or he's down, right? That's what you're going to do. Putin's a martial artist. If you attack him, he's going to hit you with everything he's got. And then twice. He's going to knock you flat if he can. You better punch him hard, because if you really start a real fight with him, he'll punch hard. They're looking at a special military operation thinking that's a war. That ain't a war. They're sparring. That ain't hitting with everything you got. They're holding. They know how to protect their country, and they will protect it with everything they have if need be. So all this bull crap about France and the U.S. attacking them, I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. Now, let's continue. First of all, let me add this. I live in the United States. The support is not here. It is not. Trust me, the support for Ukraine. Another thing that I heard again today was all this money going over there and it should be going to us. People, they can't even get money out of Congress for Ukraine anymore. You think people are going to support sending their sons and daughters over there to die? People don't support sending money anymore. They're not going to support sending their sons and daughters. So I don't care what Macron says or does. The United States does not have the support for that, and Biden is in an election year. And so he ain't doing it. It's not happening. They're on their own. And now what Europe has to worry about is, as elections, not just Europe, as elections start, you're going to start to see Gaza as a big one. And let me say this. Most of the people who you're going to see who are opposed to the Gaza conflict, most of the time they're going to be opposed to war and conflict. And they're going to say, now I'm saying some of the stinking stupid liberals will be running around, oh, yes, stop the war against Gaza. But then again, let's continue with the nuclear war against, you may get some idiot liberals doing that. But I'm just saying they are in the minority. Most of the people that you're looking now are waking up enough to say, we don't want a conflict in Gaza. We don't want a conflict in Ukraine. We don't want a conflict in China. We don't want a conflict. We want our jobs back. We want our lives back, right? We want, bottom line. And as Dr. Montero said the other day, a lot of working class people, they see the issue of immigration as a labor issue, right? It's not a race issue. It's not, oh, these people are coming in polluting our, our clear stock, right, of Aryan whatever. Trust me, the Black community ain't worried about the stock of Aryan blood. But they are concerned about driving down wages. They are concerned that people in the working class are concerned about bringing in a significant amount of new labor who's going to work for cheaper and who's going to drive down the price of labor. And it's going to hurt us at a time when the price of labor is kind of going up, and it needs to go up because inflation is going through the roof, right? So in the working class, the issue of immigration is viewed as a labor issue. So even there, it ain't popular. There ain't a bunch of working class people saying, yay, send more laborers so that we will have to work for less. Not happening, right? And that's an issue. That's a reality. So there are, the mainstream media is like, oh, everybody who's concerned with immigration is a racist. Well, I don't think that's the issue with the Black community. And I don't see a lot of support for the whole immigration thing. I think in the Black community in America, what you're seeing is people seeing it as a labor issue, saying we ain't thrilled with being overrun with fresh labor. It's a personal issue. They're thinking about themselves and feeding their family. Again, what is politics coming in? Dude, people thinking about themselves and feeding their families. It's human nature. This is not about the race or color or culture or any of this. Now, there are some people who are, yes, oh, we don't want anything other than the blue-eyed Aryan stock. Are there people like that? Sure. I'm not going to say that I'm not naive, but there are a lot of people who are concerned about the price of labor, the cost of labor. There are people who are cultural, saying, yeah, you're baguette eating French beret wearing bastards. And we got a lot of people coming that don't like to wear berets and eat baguettes. And that's our culture. You might not like it, but hey, you don't have to eat baguettes and wear red berets like we do. And we like to do that. So we're concerned with our culture. That's not a crazy thing to say. Let's not belittle everybody and call them an evil racist just because maybe they're concerned you don't understand it as well as they do. Let's continue go on. And I'm just about at the end. So the bottom line is, I know what the ruling elite knows, and that is Galloway's opened the door, that a lot of people are going to look at him throughout. See, it's not just that George Galloway won, and it shows that the people are sick and tired. It's that you're going to have a lot of other people who wouldn't have run. Now they're going to get motivated, and they're going to say, if Galloway won, well, maybe I can win. Oh, Galloway has a new party called the Workers' Party. Remember what we told? It's the alternative for Deutschland, these far right, crazy right-wing groups, which I don't know that much about the AFD to know if they're far right and crazy right-wing group or whatever. I don't know. But of course, that's what they're being portrayed as. But maybe they are, maybe they're not. That ain't the point here. Last time I checked, our boy is a committed socialist, and the name of his party is the Workers' Party. So that ain't a far right-wing group. That's people simply saying, I'm sick of this shit. He's a Workers' Party. I will guarantee you this, that there are people who are conservatives who normally vote for the Tories, who voted for this socialist Workers' Party guy. Because you know why? Because he says, I'm sick of it. because he said, I'm sick and tired of this crap in Gaza. It needs to stop. I've had it up out there with these bastards in Nazis in Ukraine. Needs to stop. I will guarantee you there are conservatives who said, I'm going to vote for Galloway because I agree with him on this stuff. And somebody's got to do something. Somebody needs to tell the truth here. Galloway's telling the truth. And so the other part of it is that doesn't that give lie to those who simply say, oh yeah, now that this is going on in the Ukraine, the far right crazies are going to overthrow Europe, the far right, the fascist, Europe is in trouble because the far right fascists, who are the only people that oppose war, apparently what they're telling us is the only people who are opposing the Ukraine war, who are opposing Gaza, who are opposing the United States, just completely controlling the ruling elite in Europe like a bunch of friggin' mindless puppets. What they're telling us is that the only people who oppose that are the far right crazies. Well, looks like the socialists and the Workers' Party ain't too thrilled about it. How about this? There are people on the right, on the left, in the middle, all over the place who are get wising up and they've had enough. And now here it comes, brother. Here it comes. How are they going to stop this flood? All right, let's take a look. Let us break bread together, dear brothers and sisters. By the way, let me just say this. Super chats are great. And one thing I love about the super chats is we always get good questions. So let's go through the super chats. Forgive me if I have to sneeze. Sorry about that. All right, let's go. I know we got some super chats. I saw a bunch of them. And as we get to the super chats, Sparky says, make Ukraine Russia again. Thank you there, Sparkster. Sparky again says, let's see what Sparky says. Don't even leave a patch called Ukraine, lest it remain a NATO playground, carpetbagger, money laundry, and becomes a BlackRock property. Yeah, I think the Russians have figured that out. I'm with you, Sparky. I think that let's be honest, the neocons are trying to figure out, how they can continue this thing, how we can do it. They're like, here's what we're going to do. Well, the Russians are going to take what they can take. Okay, fair enough. And what we'll do is whatever's left, we'll load it up with missiles and NATO stuff, and we'll use it to continue to menace Russia. That ain't happening. I think Russia's already decided that's not happening. We're going to take everything we want to take. If you want to come in here and fight, you're going to have to come to our border and fight. They're going to take Odessa. And what they're going to say is Odessa's on the Black Sea. We own the Black Sea. Nothing moves in the Black Sea. Nothing lives in the Black Sea if we say it don't live. If a ship comes up in here, if we say that ship sinks, that ship sinks. Nothing survives in the Black Sea that we don't want it to. We'll take Odessa if we want. And if you think you can stop us from taking Odessa, come on down. You want to come to our border and fight us? Let's do it. Let's dance. Kiev, whatever we want in Ukraine, we're willing. See, the Russians are willing to fight for it. They're willing to fight. That's their border. I don't blame them. They're saying, this is our border. You're coming in our border. If you're going to stay on our border, you can stay on our border if you want, but you have to fight to stay there. See, that's the bottom line. The Russians are saying, if you want to come to our border and you want to stick around, you can do that. You want to come to Ukraine and hang out, you can do that. You have to fight to hang out. You have to put up a hell of a fight to hang out. So let's see what you got. And they'll take Odessa if they want. They'll take everything they want. They'll keep taking things. But I think it's about collapsing, that the Ukraine project collapses. How about Anthony says, Pope says Ukraine needs to wave the white flag. Yeah, they can if they choose. And if they don't, they can just keep getting slammed. I agree. He's a wise man. He's telling them, come on, guys. You're getting your answers kicked at some point. You don't need to keep taking this. How about we look at Sparky says, denazify Israel. Yeah, that somebody needs to denazify that. That fascist hellhole. Sparky says, every time anyone says that Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think that before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. John Sheenhan, it's Israel, the U.S. Israel is a U.S. military base, and Israel is a fascist outpost. Fascist as hell. It's just, come on, let's face it. Everybody knows what it is. Pure fascism. Sparky, great work, Colin. Keep on trucking. Thank you, Sparkster. All right, let's keep going. Vivian says, law to ban TikTok will work. They're going to have trouble with that because let me tell you something, man, the young people are going to be pissed. In a way, I almost hope they do. Because the young people really will be, the young people in America need to feel the pain. They need to understand what's coming. They need to understand the level of fascism that they're in. And they need to understand if all of these, oh, I love Biden and the Democrats and all that stuff. And if they take TikTok from them, they'll be, hey, that sucks. I love TikTok. So maybe they need to feel some pain, and maybe they need something to wake them up. So maybe these idiots will do away with TikTok and wake them up. Sparky says, Canada has plenty of room for Ukrainian Nazi refugees. Yeah, it's a Ukrainian rest home up there. That's what it is. Eric Suarez says, Galloway can't do it all by himself. We will have to become thousands more of Galloways to give them hell. That's right. You're right, Eric Suarez. And bottom line is this. Now, the real problem they have is not just the people, it's the copycatters, right? The problem they have is not just that the people are pissed, they can see that, but now a lot of people have seen that success. And there are people all over Europe saying, I'm going to run and I'm going to do what Galloway did. Galloway is shown to be a hero. He's the hero. He's the big guy. There are a lot of people who want to be heroes. They're going to say, you know what, damn it, I'm going to run too. I'll do what Galloway did. They're going to start new parties. You'll see new parties starting to rise all over the place. Left. See, think about it. They said, oh, the AFD and these far right-wing parties. Well, now there's another party, I think, in some kind of socialist party. Well, but now beware, because you know damn good and well what the intelligence community does now, right? They're going to create some party and call it the Socialist Party. Well, yes, we're the European Socialist Party. Really, what are you in favor of? Continuing what Gaza's doing, and war in Ukraine. We're all for that. Where's your headquarters? Langley, Virginia. I mean, Paris? Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Do we have some more super chats? All right. Sparky says, go CIA, take the FBI with you. How about that? Gavin Hillick says, Ireland just rejected the whole political class, a referendum to remove woman and mother from the Constitution and dilute marriage in a landslide. They just rejected. What did they do? Did they vote against it? They rejected the whole political class in a referendum? Did they accept the referendum? I'm guessing that they rejected the referendum. So I don't know what they did. Bottom line is, Gavin, I'm guessing that you're saying that they turned down the referendum and that rejected the whole political class, but I'm not 100% clear. Since, I'm not from Ireland, I don't know the politics there at all, so I'm not sure what happened or what he meant by that, but thanks. Garland, please invite Keaton and Russell from Due Dissidents. Oh, yeah, Due Dissidents guys. I like those guys. I watch them sometimes. They seem like pretty cool guys. They do some funny stuff. Red Chili Pepper, super sticker. Thanks, RCP. Paul McGowan says, look at the referendum here in Ireland, Garland. The establishment were defeated so badly. Oh, okay. So now it's not clear, but I don't know. Well, I'm thinking, this is going to be my guess, that there was a referendum in Ireland, and that referendum was going to try to do away with, and I'm trying to put things together to understand it, but I'm guessing that there was a referendum. We know that the referendum was defeated badly, but what I don't know is what was in the referendum that was defeated badly. I'm guessing, based on what the other things said, that the referendum was somehow doing something to remove like mother and make it some generic thing and woman and make its generic gender fluid stuff in there, and that was badly defeated. So that's a good, if I'm guessing correctly, then that's a good thing. Bernie says, Garland, do you think Gaza would be better off with Trump's followers pressuring to make things worse? Also having his connection with Jared Kushner. No, I don't think Gaza would be better off with Trump. I don't think they'd be worse off with Trump. Gaza, Trump, Biden are Zionists. That's what they are. That's who they are. They're stinking Zionists. And either way, this is the U.S. empire. This is U.S. imperialism. So no, that I think they'd be better off with another Zionist imperialist. Nah, I don't. I don't think they'd be better off. I don't think they'd be worse off. I think that's going to be what it is. I do think that Israel's kind of done. I mean, I don't see how Israel comes back from this. People aren't going to want to buy anything from Israel. People aren't going to want to travel to Israel. They're going to have no economy. They're nothing but a welfare state. They already were mostly a welfare state. Now they're going to be a complete welfare state. The people who all went back to Brooklyn ain't going to want to go back. I think Israel's kind of done. It'll never be the same country that it was. It has committed suicide. And people just all over the world despise Israel. It's viewed as a fascist Nazi state. So, you know, and I mean, it might very well be an accurate description. Mikasa Ackerman says, what do you think is the chance that Trump will get JFK'd before November? I don't think good, because I think the system would be scared to do that. I think the system's scared to do that, but God only knows what they'll do. But you know what the system better be worried about? They better hope Trump doesn't drop dead of a heart attack. They better hope Trump doesn't have a stroke and die. They better hope Trump's plane doesn't go down. That if something, because let's be honest, if Trump were to die of natural causes, would anybody believe it? I probably wouldn't. If somebody if I turn on the newspaper, oh, last poor Donald Trump, he passed away of a heart attack peacefully in his sleep last night, I'd be like, yeah, right. You think I believe that? They beat him to death. They held a freaking pillow over his head till he stopped struggling. And I mean, if we are logical, right? If we are logical, it is possible. He ain't a young man. He's in his upper 70s. He could crap out any given time, right? If Trump came down with some untreatable cancer tomorrow, you know what people would think? Yeah, they injected him with some kind of cancer. They injected that poor bastard with cancer cells. They smeared him all over his fries, right? If Trump were to suddenly face some kind of a dramatic health crisis, most people would suspect that the Biden people did it to him. And that could lead this country to violence. I mean, everybody knows I'm telling the truth. That if something happened to Trump, and I mean, he's a human being. Anybody. Today I went to a memorial for one of my fishing buddies who at 52 years old died of a heart attack at 52. Terrible situation, right? Wife, 2 kids, the whole 9 yards, right? His kids are, adults and stuff now. They're in their 20s, I think, at least. But beautiful wife, beautiful kids, a good guy, had a big business, had a company that built bridges, right? And, Super Bowl Sunday, passed away of a heart attack suddenly. Called his wife and like, oh man, I'm having problems, blah, blah, blah. Came home, fell in the yard, went to the hospital, and he was gone, right? Terrible, terrible thing. So if that can happen to a 52 guy, what is Trump, 76, 77, something like that? Surely overweight, surely he could go, but nobody would believe it. Not even me. You think I'd come on tomorrow and do a video about how tragic it was that Trump suddenly and mysteriously passed away? No, I'd be like, yeah, they killed that bastard for sure. And of course, this country would have some problems if something happened to Trump. Some serious problems. So it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's a possibility. And if Trump dies of natural causes, everybody will believe they killed him. ADEC, thank you, ADEC. Certainly appreciate that. Anything else? Anyone else? We got any more super chats? Oh, plenty. Everybody's out tonight. Sparky says, yes, you guessed the gist of the Irish referendum. Great. And people are sick of that crap, man. People like, really, come on. We're tired of redefining what is a woman. You ever notice that? What's the definition of a woman? A woman, it's a noun. The word is a noun. That's what I'd say. If I was running for office, they said, what's a woman? I'd say it's a noun. It's easy. Any more questions? Let's look at Rockfin. If somebody in Rockfin. All right. Thank you very much, Anna Mears. Accidental Activist says, we're seeing videos being posted tonight that France has convoys on the move. Not true. I don't know. But I tell you this. I mean, what are they really going to do? Convoys. They're going to send a couple of, so they're going to go from France and they're going to go across into Ukraine. What are they going to do? Could the neocons say, hey, we want to sacrifice some French troops? Yeah, but they don't have the wherewithal to fight the Russians. Anything they do is going to be symbolic. They're like, hey, they may send, what's the term they use? a trigger. No, it's the term. There's a term they use when they send a few troops there, so that if you get them, they're going to be yeah, everybody knows the term I'm looking for. So if they get these troops, then if they attack these troops, then we'll let them have it, right? The term is it's like somebody in there knows a tripwire, right? Well, if you got a tripwire, you got to have a bomb on the other end of it. What happens if you got a tripwire and somebody comes and they blow the tripwire, but it ain't connected to a bomb? It ain't connected to a bomb. What are you going to do? So bottom line, France is doing a lot of woofing. If they get together, I doubt it, but anything's possible. I doubt it. But if they send some troops in, if Slovenia, Slovakia, whoever sends some troops in, then they can get their ass kicked. Russia's there. Russia's going to protect their border. Russia's fighting. And they're going to fight on their border. And if you come to their border, you better be ready to fight. They're ready to fight. They're not pussyfooting around. They're not bluffing. They're not going to play games. If you come there, you're going to have to fight. And they can't. Because if France sends troops in and they just let them drift around, then there's more coming. If they don't attack them, if they don't fight them, you can guarantee you they'll keep coming. So when they send in, they gotta send a message early. That's what I would think if I was a Russian general. I'd say if they send troops in, we got to hit them, because if we don't, they're going to send a few more. And then a few more, and they'll just keep on coming. So we got to let them know early. If you come in this door, you better be ready for war. You're on our border. And now, bit by bit, does the European countries want to send a couple thousand troops here to get blasted, a couple more thousand to get blasted? They can't put together a huge amount. They're like, yes, we've got 40,000 or something troops at some on the border of Russia doing some NATO exercise. That still ain't a lot. It still ain't a lot. Russia's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands. It still ain't a lot. You put together the most powerful proxy army, this gigantic army you put together, and Russia crushed it. And you put like 2 more iterations of that party together, and Russia's crushed them too. What are you going to do? Send NATO there almost out of, well, let's say the Russians get in a standoff with them, and the Russians say, you know what? We're not going to go head to head. We're going to sit back. And we're going to hit them with artillery and bombs and things like that. How long can they shoot back before they run out of weapons? So now, what would you have? You'd have, let's say, 80,000 NATO troops trading fire. Meanwhile, you got Ukraine over here. Now, fire is being traded. How long can you trade fire before you run out? The Ukrainians are going to say, send us some more ammo. And you're going to say, we're almost out ourselves. We can't. So now your Ukrainian front collapses because they're completely out of ammo. And you're over there like, we're almost out of ammo. And the Russians are like, yeah, but we ain't. Yeah, probably not a good move, huh? All right. Anything else? Let me look and see. I don't see anything else. Ireland votes to keep sexist language. Yeah, I don't see much else. I don't see anything about French convoys on the move. And where? In Ukraine, they're going to get blown up. Let's see. Let's look. Okay. Paul says it was about woman's role, but the weirdos didn't like it. Hail, hail, Ireland. All right. Thank you. Mikasa Ackerman says, how realistic is Chicago fire and Chicago PD? I'm kind of addicted to it recently. I've watched Chicago PD before. It's not all that realistic. It's drama. It's not all that realistic, I don't think. Nah. Not completely unrealistic, but it's a dramatization of law enforcement. I don't know about Chicago fire because I never was a fireman, but I can say this. But Chicago fire and Chicago PD are entertaining. They are very entertaining. So who cares if they're realistic or not? If you like watching them, that's all that matters. Watch them. Amita Sahaludin. Thanks, Garland. And no dates for me this Ramadan. I think a lot of Israeli dates. People don't want to buy them and eat them. Anything else? That's it. All right. I think that's it, gang. So thank you very much. I'll be back on tomorrow. And, I've been just crazy busy the last couple months. So I've been doing a lot of interviews and not as much just stuff where I get off and the usual stuff where I get off and get on and yap and run my mouth. So I kind of getting things cleared up. So I will be back to doing my regular videos more often. I'll be back on tomorrow. So thanks a lot. Everybody have a wonderful day. Don't forget, if you can help the channel, follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram. I'm there. You can follow me on Telegram. And of course, if you can support the channel, certainly Patreon is a good place. Buy me a coffee is always great because you just go there and it says, buy Buck Garland a coffee, $5. How many? And you put in the number you want. And buy me a coffee now, you can do just like Patreon. You can say, I want to be a monthly subscriber and buy Garland a monthly coffee for $5 or however many you want. Buy me a coffee is great. Patreon's an option. PayPal is there. And certainly my Cash App information is there. So if you can afford to help the channel, that's great. Also, this is critical. Go over to rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com. Does not cost anything to subscribe. Most of my stuff is anybody can watch. And of course, if they throw me off YouTube, boom, I'll be on Rockfin and Rumble. So follow me on Rumble also. But I'll be on Rockfin. Also, Rockfin doesn't have any advertisements. But if you can afford it, the way they stay in business is you can become a subscriber. It's like $14.99 a month. If you can afford it, I'd certainly appreciate it. If you can't, hey, I understand it. But you can become a subscriber on Rockfin for $14.99 a month. You don't have to. That allows you to see the premium content. That's all. But you don't have to. You can just join for free. So please go over to Rockfin, go over to Rumble. Make sure you join in case they throw me off YouTube. Peace. I'm out.